I'm going to go ahead and cut the decal film off because I don't want any decal film on the inside of the canopy. Then you go through your normal decal process. The advantage of using decals is you can get a nice clean, crisp line, as clean and crisp as you can cut it. Okay, we're ready to attach our canopy. I'm going to put the rear portion of the canopy in to help position the forward portion of the canopy. Glue the forward portion on with super glue. Go ahead and position it. Now using a small piece of wire, I'm going to get a little tiny drop of super glue. I'm going to put a little tack in one corner, tack in the middle, and a tack in the other corner. Now we'll let that set up. We don't want to use too much super glue at one time or it's going to cause the canopy to fog up. Okay, I'm holding the windscreen in position. I've got it tacked in 3 places. Now I'm going to come in between those, put a couple more little tacks. And I'm going to slowly work my way around with small tacks until I've got the entire windscreen glued down with super glue. With that in position, we'll go ahead and glue the rear portion of the canopy on. Go through one last time and blow the cockpit out, make sure there's no dust in the cockpit. I'll run a little bead of white glue along the edge here. So again, we're using white glue because it dries clear. And go ahead and position it. The excess we'll just wipe off with our finger and come back and clean the glass up in a minute. Now the reason we attached the windscreen portion with super glue is because there shouldn't be a gap around the bottom. This portion back here moves. It's never going to get a full seal, so there will show a gap. Coming back in on the windscreen, I'm going to fully fill that crack with super glue, and then I'm going to come in and sand that out, blend it in with the fuselage. This is really important at contests. Judges do look at this kind of a thing. I'm looking towards the light, using the reflection to see that I have completely filled the gap. Over on this side, where I haven't filled it, you can see the difference. Okay, my super glue is dry, so I'm going to come in with 600 grit, wet, and sand that seam out. I'm ready for some 1200 grit. Okay, we've sanded the seam down with 600 and 1200 wet. Now I'm taking my polishing cloth with the dried Brasso on it, and I'm going to come in and polish the canopy out where I sanded with the 1200. And we're ready to mask the canopy and paint. Okay, I have in front of me some 3M fine line tape in 1/16 inch and 1/8 inch, as well as some drafting tape. The 3M tape is available at automotive stores. The drafting tape you can get in an art store. Go ahead and pull off some of the 1/16 inch fine line tape and mask the windscreen. Go ahead and tack it down in one corner of the canopy, slowly stretch it around. You can use a toothpick to help you position it. Burnish the edges with your fingernail as you go, and when we're done with that, we'll go ahead and mask the other edges of the frame. The reason we're using the 3M, the fine line tape, because it's easier to control where you're putting it on, and it'll give you a finer edge than a drafting tape or a masking tape. It's not a cloth or paper tape. Now any areas that are going to be painted bare metal, such as the gun port in this case, we want to mask prior to painting. So I'm going to go ahead and mask this off with some clear tape using my hobby knife. Trim away the excess. Okay, before I start airbrushing, I have to determine a way to hold the model. Now I've taken a piece of wood here and carved up the end so that it fits nicely in the tail cone. This way I can hold the model, spray the whole thing without handling the model. There's other methods of doing this on small scale jets. You can use a toothbrush and jam it in the tailpipe. Prior to airbrushing the model, I'm going to wipe the whole model down with a t-shirt to remove any finger oils, dirt, and residue. I'll go ahead and mix up some paint. My colors, I'm using the kit instructions as a reference for the light gray, because it looks right. Probably putting 1/3 of thinner, 2/3 of paint. And what I like to do is swirl it around in the cup. And when the paint flows down and becomes transparent, you've got about the right consistency. Now I'm going to test my spray on a scrap piece of cardboard here. You should always test it first. I'm going to lay this cardboard to the side. And I'll begin by getting some paint flowing out of the gun and moving to the model. Now I'm spraying in small circular motions, slowly filling it in. The one area that can be a problem is where you have two angles coming together. If I'm to spray this stabilizer, the overspray is going to come up and stick to the sides of the rudder here, the vertical stabilizer. The cure for that would be to lower your air pressure if you've got a pressure regulator. So now I'm using real low pressure, and I'm going to come in and spray along these cracks and crevices and hard to get to places. Walk around your model and check all your seams now that you've got a base coat of paint. If you see any seams that need to be refilled, do it now. All right, we're ready to paint our second color of our camouflage. I'm using a combination of 3 sources that I found. I'm going to green the color up a little bit. I've determined that this one top view right here is as close as I'm going to get to the actual Iraqi camouflage scheme. So I'll be using this photo for reference as I airbrush. And I'll set that back here. Now I've got my second camouflage color here. I'm going to do a test pattern on the scrap piece of cardboard. I'll begin out here on a wingtip. Now the first pass I made isn't quite to where I want to go. I'm going to be putting more paint out here and crisping up this edge. Make that first pass short, and then I'm going to come in and fill this in. I don't want to spray this vertical stabilizer and chaff dispenser portion here, so I'm going to use a Post-it notepad. Stick it on there. In fact, I'm going to use 2. Slide one underneath the flap here to protect the side of the fuselage there. Yeah, I've got that portion masked off. Now I'm going to come in and fill this in. Now if you've thinned your paint properly, you should be having no problems. If you're getting spatter, you probably have too thick a paint. If you're getting runs, your paint is probably too thin. If the surface is coming out like sandpaper, probably have your air pressure up too high. Now I'm going to paint the vertical stabilizer, and to keep from getting my overspray on the opposite side, I'll put a mask up on the back. Notice when I start spraying, I always start spraying off of the model. That way if you get some spatter, it won't get on your model. Okay, I'm going to be using Post-it notepads as a mask along all my straight edges. And I'm doing what's called forced panel lines. Basically just stick your Post-it notepad along a panel line Now I'm taking my original camouflage color, I'm going to lighten it, and I'm going to make it into a tint. So I've got 1/4 original camouflage color, about 3/4 flat, clear flat, and a couple drops of white. Stir that up. And we want to spray right along the edge of this Post-it notepad. Confine it to the area that's the darker camouflaged. I'm using the darker color right now.